Hi folks, you're with us today, Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about an alleged, maybe technical rape. So not a rape with violence, threat of violence, or anything like that, a technicality version of the rape. You know, she had half a glass of wine too much, therefore couldn't give consent, therefore it was kind of a technical rape, even though she did consent. Her consent has no legal validity based on this strangled version of poor little oppressed women and those evil fascist Nazi men. So anyway, I want to talk about this case because it encapsulates and illustrates, and I think brings to the fore, the utter and total fucking insanity of the feminist view of social justice and gender relations generally. So I'll just give you the background. I'm not going to name the people or the situation or the case because there's still some legal issues that are attached to it. But I'll give you the general background. So two employees go back into the office without formal approval, go back into the office and after they've been out partying and so on. And they're both young, early 20s. And neither of them are coming across as geniuses, quite far from it. In fact, when you look at certainly her, that I don't know why anyone would hire her. It doesn't appear to have any qualities that would make somebody want to hire. But anyway, so they go back into the office, and there's a man and a woman, young man and a woman. He leaves, she stays there, and apparently falls asleep and so on. Wakes up naked, and so then a few days later, or some time later, she says that maybe she could have been raped, but she sort of isn't really sure. She doesn't know. And was it an assault? And was it this? Was it unwanted sex? Was it I had half a glass of wine too much, therefore my consent isn't legally valid? What was it exactly? Nobody knows. It's some time, before she decides. Then she decides that she's going to claim it was a rape, but there's no evidence that it was. There's no physical evidence at all. Nothing to suggest that it was, other than her allegation. The guy in question denies it, but he loses his job over this, and a very activist, stacked to the rafters with feminist activists, Department of Prosecutions decide they're going to take it up. The police think that, hey, there's no real evidence here, so I don't think it's worth going to court with it. No, don't care, says the activist Department of Prosecutions. Evil oppressor men, helpless victim woman. We've got to take this case. We've got to fight back. We've got to fight back against these fucking Nazis. So they decide to take it to court with no evidence. Unsurprisingly, it falls over, and just to carry on suggests that maybe the department engineered it that way in collusion with the judges. I don't know. I'm suggesting that's a possibility. Can't prove that, but it's a rather suspicious way they ended the case. Then decide to retry it, and then say that the poor little girl, poor little oppressed woman, remember, they're fighting for feminism here. The poor little oppressed woman, it might cause her too much stress. Justice is so important, and suddenly, no, it's not, because the little girlie is too stressed. Okay, well, should somebody that frail even be working? Should they even be sort of walking around? So, I don't know. But anyway, so now the processes that went into before it became a legal case was that everyone in senior management is petrified of the public relations look that a young woman is going to say she was raped in the office. Everyone's losing it. The most senior management are involved, multiple layers of management, public relations people I mean, you couldn't get more people involved. And yet there's still no finding that there was anything. There's just one disturbed girl, young woman, who's saying that maybe it could have been, I don't know, I think I might have been raped, but there was no force, no threat of force. There wasn't anything there. It just didn't fully have my consent, even though I was with this guy. And so there's really not much to go on. But the amount of people involved, is it going to go public? Will the police be involved? Will it be this? And there are people buzzing off in all directions, diving under desks, leaping over whatever, all over what this young woman might say. Now, remember, there's no physical evidence. The guy denies it, and there's nothing to really suggest it did happen. But that doesn't matter because the issue here is oppressed women, and we all have to be ultra worried and concerned about oppressed women, even though they're fully equal, by the way. Fully fucking equal, and don't you fucking forget it. But they're also victims of evil fucking Nazi fascist oppressed Hitler. Hitler is everywhere. So while they're juggling, these sort of conflicting issues of equality and equity, but victimhood, oppression, ideology, feminist ideology, Jewish lesbian interpretations, and so on, all this sort of stuff. Feminist ideology on triple steroids. No one really knows what to do. What will she do? It's up to you, they say to the young girl, but she doesn't know. And he's a young girl with no skills, mummy and daddy issues and all that sort of stuff. And now, she's quite reasonably concerned that she's, come into the office at night without permission and was misbehaving in the office of a senior manager. And so she would be quite concerned about, disciplinary action, possibly, maybe even losing her job. So she wakes up in the morning and think, holy crap. Now, maybe she was drunk, maybe not, maybe she just fell asleep, maybe. But she wakes up and thinks, holy crap, this is not a good look. Waking up naked in the boss's office in the morning. So I better have a cover story. And like, girls that quit university because they can't hack it or they can't be bothered, they need a good excuse. So what will I tell daddy? All the money he spent? I know. I'll tell him I was raped. Then I've got a good excuse for leaving the university. I've got a good excuse for it, and I'll tell him I raped him. And he'll go, oh, baby, that's terrible, little baby. Don't worry about anything. You come back here and we'll forget about all that money and forget that you're just a fucking crap, lazy shit student. We'll forget all because you were raped, you poor little baby. So this is the go-to. This is the first go-to for young women in this sort of position. And I believe that was in balance of probability where this one went. And given the amount of time that she waited before formally making a complaint, which later led to a criminal charge, then there was no physical evidence. Now, if the Department of Prosecutions hadn't been so fanatically politicized and ideologically politicized with feminist insanity, they wouldn't have touched it. There's no evidence. But who gives a fuck when you're fighting for social justice, when you're fighting for feminism, when you're fighting back against Hitler, then anything is allowed. And this is what they were doing. They were fighting Hitler. And so off they went. Now, it's continued on. There's been like a number of cases and it continued thereafter. And I was totting up the amount of legal fees and the cost to the state and overall in the whole thing. And we're approaching $10 million. And I think it'll exceed that by the time, payouts and this and that and the next thing. I think it'll be between $12 and $15 by the time it's fully washed out or played out. So I just want you to sort of visualize this. Thousands of man hours by prosecutors, lawyers, some very senior lawyers too, by the way, judges plural, numerous operatives at all levels. We've got people on serious money that are involved in this, and the furor, the amount of media hours, print hours that have been dedicated to this, and current affairs and news and so on is almost endless. I mean, it's off the charts. I mean, we're already talking thousands of hours of coverage on this. But let's just go back to the beginning here. This massive furor, bigger than Ben-Hur type furor, all came from a young, disturbed woman who's just had a bit too much to drink, who's a bit worried about the bad look of waking up naked in the boss's office, and who says, "Oh, I don't know. I think maybe I could have been. I'm not really sure. I might have been raped." Now, straight away, that was their force, threat of force, this, that, none of those things. Okay, so we're down to technical rape here. Whatever consent you gave wasn't technically legally valid because you had too much to drink. So so it's a very technical take on rape with no physical evidence. Now, any Department of Prosecutions that's concerned about the law, the fucking law and due legal process and the rights of all the people, the accused as much as anyone else here. Remember, the accused is innocent until proven guilty in an independent, impartial court of law, and they must be accorded full due legal process and absolute recognition of their legal rights. This is not an ideological thing. Well, we know he's a fucking Nazi Hitler, and she's just a little tiny little flower baby, and we the big hairy chested lesbian feminists, we have to fight back against oppression. No. We're talking the law and due legal process, an impartial law, not ideological law, not politicized law, but completely independent, impartial law. But none of that seemed to occur to anybody. And so off the circus went, and it continues to this day. So there was no reason or basis, as in a solid reason or basis to run with it. It was always ideological and political, always. And it has played out, or not finished playing out, but it's played out. But I was wondering, the insanity of the ideology, feminist ideology. You can imagine the team of prosecutors around the table. We have to fight back against those fascist Nazi oppressors. Too many men are getting away with rape. They're all fucking Nazi, fucking fascist, fucking Hitlers. And it's time we struck a blow for feminism. It's time we got one of those motherfuckers and put them in fucking prison. But we haven't got any evidence. Who gives a fuck? We don't need evidence. This is ideology. If we put this guy in prison, he's innocent, that'll send a message to all those rapist fucking Nazis that are out there. Yeah, sure. And I think it would have gone, maybe not that language, but it would have gone somewhere along those lines. But I'm mentioning this to illustrate the absolute insanity and madness that has infected the legal, the practice of law, jurisprudence in the West due to this insane ideology. And by the way, there are legal practitioners pouring out of universities that are filled with this ideological insanity, filled with it. Their heads are actually crammed full of it. And I've spoken to a special prosecutor, as one of these sort of drink and finger food type sessions where, and I ended up standing, not that I knew it at first, standing next to a specialist prosecutor for rape. And I've mentioned this before, and she was of the view that if innocent men got sent to prison, falsely accused of rape, got sent to prison, and that kind of wasn't really a big, in the wider ideological issue, that's no great shakes. I mean, who cares? As long as they do get some people that did do it. Her view is that nearly all rapists are getting away with it. I don't agree with that instantly, but that's her sort of. It's a very ideological take on things because every guy's a rapist, and and very much into the ideology. She was white and straight, by the way, which kind of intrigued me. But anyway, she's convinced that she's been radicalized, that all men are getting away with it. That the reason there's so few prosecutions or successful prosecutions rather for rape is because men are getting away with it, not because that women are lying, or because the very fine technical nature of or that the prosecutions department are taking up weak cases. No. These men are getting away with it because they're fucking fascists, fucking Nazis. And so if innocent men get sent to prison, but they imagine that sort of group of, that gets sent to prison, they manage to get one or two actual rapists, then that's fine. That's a price worth paying. So the bar has to be lowered and lowered again to make it easier to bring them to court and make it easier to get a conviction. And again, if innocent people get sent to prison, hey, it doesn't matter. Bit of collateral damage, but ideologically, we're doing the right thing. And I was aghast at this. I thought, fuck me, and you're a prosecutor, for goodness sakes. How would anyone want to appoint a prosecutor like that? Sure, if there is, violent threats and rape and, I don't know, kidnapping or something like that, sure, prosecute, gee whiz. And people that do those sorts of things, according to the law, should be held accountable. And if found guilty, should be going to prison. And there's no doubt about that. But the idea of throwing people in prison that didn't do it, or on some finely balanced technical bullshit argument about she had half a glass of wine too much and that's bullshit. But yet it's a view that she held, and she's a prominent prosecutor, still is, as far as I know. And again, I was aghast at this and said, "This is terrible. How can you even say this?" And I'm not a lawyer, but to me, the law has to be sacrosanct in that sense. It must be fact-based and evidence-based, not something that's a toy or a plaything of fanatical ideologues. But she turned to me, and again, I mentioned this previously, she said, "I don't know why you're worrying. You're not the sort of person who's going to be found guilty of this or sent to prison." She said, I can spot a rapist at 100 paces and the sort of guy that does it. So, and you're not that sort of guy. So why are you worrying? As if only my own ass was the issue. I said, no, it's nothing. Well, I will or won't. It's nothing to do with me. This is the idea of the practice of law, of jurisprudence, that we all have faith in the absolute impartiality and independence of the law, and it's not been politicized or injected with crazy ideology. And she shook her head, and she believes that ideology and politicization of the law is what's needed, because that's what you have to, in her view, this is what you have to do to create equity or equitable outcomes. The idea of facts and evidence and independence, impartiality, this sort of thing, that doesn't guarantee the ideological outcomes that she and people who've been indoctrinated like her want. And given that people like her are now in the majority in Department of Prosecutions and district attorneys and fucking courts and judges and so on, given that they are now in the majority, that's how they perceive the law. And it's the most terrible thing imaginable. This is what it's come to. But I wanted to mention this because this issue, because it highlights the utter insanity of where we're at in the state of jurisprudence, I believe, today. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.